I'm a cosplayer, milliner, and hobby linguist. Hobby linguist just means I'm not officially trained by like a university. I just study this for fun on the side. You can try and ask me super deep linguistic questions. I'm probably not gonna know. I'll give probably a really bad attempt at it. Milliner just means hat maker. I make hats. I was going to put more photos, but I realized last minute I didn't even include this slide at all, so I just picked a recent cosplay, which is my Nightcrawler. Yes, I am on top of a car. I did get permission to do that. I still can't believe he let me up there, and I'm sad no one got the photo of Superman lifting Nightcrawler onto the car. Because let me tell you, that would have been a really funny photo. There is one of Superman laying across the front of the car, so we compromised. Alright, so what is a dialect? A dialect is a particular form of a language which is to a specific region or group. Now, if we're talking specifics, there's a lot of overlapping linguistics, a lot of debate. So if we're talking what's a dialect versus a language versus like an accent, there's a very, very thin line between all of them. And so we get to the point where we just have to cut it off and we don't debate it because it gets very political extremely fast. So there's only one terminology that you'll hear me talk about a lot today, and that's just what a family tree is in terms of language. Basically, that means it's like a root language that things come from. So like, the easiest to explain is Romance languages. They all come from Latin, they all connect with each other. That's my best example, is the simplest. You all know what they all come from Latin. It's Spanish, Italian, technically Portuguese, and we also have French. And Romanian. Thank you, I almost forgot about that one. So who will we talk about? We're going to talk about Psylocke. I had someone, I was talking about Psylocke, they're like, are you talking about the body or the mind? And I had to pick one, and I picked the mind. We're going to talk about Magneto, Nightcrawler, Rogue, because she does have a particular dialect. It is not just an accent. We're going to talk about Colossus, Forge, Sunspot, and Gambit. I saved Nightcrawler and Gambit for last because those are the two I have the most to say on. But other than that, we're going to be going over the others pretty much in order. I say pretty much in order. None of this is in order. I just kind of wrote things down and went with it. So we're going to start with Psylocke. So this is Psylocke, if you haven't seen her. She's a really, really cool character. In terms of like media she's been in, I think she has a current comic run going on that's really cool. She's briefly in a couple of the Xmen movies, but unfortunately they just don't give her a really big role. But she's actually this is where we get confusing with her, but for simplicity's sake, she's originally from Maldon, Essex, England. And I do actually have a little, right there, that's where it's from. You can actually see that on the map right there. So their particular dialect ends up affecting how they pronounce their words more, and while there's still a lot of that British slang involved in it, we get to hear a lot of their THs that are pronounced as Fs, and then sometimes they just drop the first letter of a lot of their words. And she is also one of the ones that I really wanted to include because when I was reading up on Psylocke, a lot of people were talking about how they don't write her accent into the comics a lot. So whenever they're writing Psylocke into the comics a lot, not only do they not just write the accent in, which is admittedly can be hard to do, especially whenever most people don't think about specific dialects of a region. Which is why we also see characters like Magneto that don't get their dialects written in. Whenever they're dropping every other letter of the word, they don't pronounce it. So now we're going to move on to Magneto. So he was from Germany in the 1920s. He was in the Holocaust, but that's an interesting story because their family was from northwest Germany, which actually is called Lower Franconian, which is a specific dialect of German. So that particular dialect of German, I don't know, I won't be fully real, I don't know enough about German to tell you a super lot about it. However, if we're talking about also the languages that he speaks, it would have to include that he would have to speak Polish as well. So, I think I have a map here. Yeah, so that's where Dusseldorf is. And so the Lower Franconian region actually includes around, you can see that, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, great. So the Lower Franconian region includes about all of this, except a little tiny area up here, closer to the Netherlands and Denmark. I can't remember what that particular region is called, but we will also be talking about down here, closer to Austria, and then I get to talk about Nightcrawler's accent later on. But for Dusseldorf specifically, because it's so close to, oh god, I realized I was close to the mic. Because it's so close to like Belgium, we also have some of that Franconian influence and some of that Flemish influence as well. Flemish is just like French Dutch. It's a weird, lovely little language that's closest in family to the Dutch. If you've never heard anybody speak Dutch, I highly recommend it. It's very entertaining for English speakers because they basically just respell a bunch of English words. I wish I was joking. It is so much fun. So, however, because we also have some of the other influences of that particular area, it would also be mixed with riparian. So riparian, I don't think I can move back, but it would have been just slightly over here on the map. So it's a very, very small area versus goes right over here. That's this little weird mixture. And if we're talking about how he would have spoken in German, that's excluding any Polish expertise that would have affected how he spoke. Because of the fact that whenever his family moved from Germany to Poland, they then also moved to the capital of Poland, and then that's when they unfortunately were taken and they were put into Auschwitz. But they didn't put that in the shows or the comics. We didn't get a single accent from Magneto, nor, I guess the closest we got was in Apocalypse. He ends up living, I think, back in Poland or Ukraine, and he actually does speak the language, which is a very interesting scene where he's just speaking it. It's very fun to listen to. But I'm also a nerd, obviously, I'm here. Alright, so this is Forge. Forge is a Cheyenne character. Cheyenne is so interesting to me. There is actually a website you can learn Cheyenne on that I discovered when doing research for this panel. It's a nonprofit website. I'll have to pull it up here in a second, but so the Cheyenne website also includes a lot of the terminology that would be included with Cheyenne, and it also goes over verbs and how you would speak it, and gives examples about how it's pronounced. I think it's Cheyenne.org or something like that, but it was very informative too when doing research on him because he is Cheyenne. Forge's story is a little bit sad because he does end up being enlisted, and then that's when he unfortunately gets the injury that causes him to lose his leg. Of course, he builds that prosthetic to replace it, but he ends up going to war, comes back, and he no longer considers himself a Cheyenne. He considers himself an American. However, he finds his roots again, and then he starts to relearn the language. So he's also another one of those characters where we know he's Cheyenne. However, he doesn't actually verbally show that language knowledge or have much of an accent in much of the TV shows or movies, and then it's such a slight accent. We can't really tell what it's about, especially whenever you're talking about just comics. So you can't, unless they're writing it in the super specific alphabet that only linguists know, you wouldn't be able to see how it's pronounced. So what's really cool is that the Cheyenne language is from the Algonquian, I got it. The Algonquian family tree, which also includes other dying languages like Blackfoot, Ojibwa, and Cree. They're all from the same original family, and then it just broke apart as it spread down. So we know Forge speaks Cheyenne as well as English. I'm making pretty good time. I'm actually getting through this way faster than I thought I would. Someone in the front just said, it means you have more time to talk about Gambit. Look, he's one of us to listen to talk about him the most, so. Colossus. First off, I love speaking Russian. I'm so bad at it, but I love speaking Russian. So he's from Ust-Ordinsky, Russia, in South Siberia. there is basically a lake called Lake Baikal. Did I include that on here? Lake Baikal. Lake Baikal is really, really close to Mongolia, which means we have this super interesting dialect of Russian that comes from that area. So because of that, technically, if we're talking about what languages he would speak, having grown up on Lake Baikal, it would have to be it's called, I want to say, did I seriously not write it? I did not, damn. Okay. Well, there is a specific dialect, and I'm so sorry, it completely slipped my mind to somehow forget to write the dialect name in. But it's basically a mix of Russian and Mongolian, and it's actually home to a specific type of people that are of Mongolic and nomadic in nature, that live around Lake Baikal. Now, his family was not nomadic, however, because of the large influence of the area, it's not just Russian that's spoken. However, if we're talking about the area, it's very easy to say that he would have at least had minimum words from this other dialect mixed into his speech patterns. And so, I did write it in, but I just can't read. Buryad. I can read, guys, I promise. So, if you've ever listened to someone who speaks Russian speak, they have completely different filler words, and they tend to drop their R's. And what I mean by dropping their R's is if you're hearing someone talk in a Russian accent, like we hear Colossus speak, this is the part of the panel where you guys get to laugh at my bad accents. Don't worry, you get to hear more. I deal with Nightcrawler and with Rogue and Gambit, so you got plenty to make fun of after this.
I can't wait to know the next.
No, please laugh. I'm here for entertainment purposes. So if we're talking Russian and you're talking like Privyet, they bounce off their R more. So it's like, if I'm talking in a Russian accent, that would turn French. Shit. Sorry. I work on as a line cook, I'm sorry. Let's see, Privyet, как дела? In Russian, Colossus has this very thick accent. And whenever, I'm not going to continue that Russian accent, it was horrible. But they can someone just say continue? I don't think I can even say a full sentence. I'll switch into French so fast. I did sign up for this. Anyways, but you would hear a lot of those dropping of the R's. You hear it if you ever have. Please tell me we have a bunch of people here who have seen the original Xmen show. Okay, great. Hearing that, I was rewatching season 1 in preparation for this panel, and hearing that, like, the dropping of the I don't say call them filler words, but they don't really have a specific, like with English and basically every other language, we have like the or a before their words. Russian doesn't quite have that in the same capacity that we do. So if I'm saying like opening the door, it would just be open door. We're not adding an B to that. And so that's why you tend to hear in Russian accents why they don't include that is because in Russian it's not really a thing. I don't remember what their filler words were, but I also had to like relearn Cyrillic to read some of the Buryat, and let me tell you, relearning Cyrillic, not easy. I could read like every other letter. All right, here we get to Sunspot. I think I like texted my Brazilian friend and I said, please do not watch my panel. And they were like, why? And I said, if I have to pronounce anything in Portuguese, it's not going to go well. But Sunspot is Afro-Brazilian. He is a very unique character. He's mixed, which is also interesting for him. So because he is Brazilian, that means he speaks Portuguese, one of the only Latin American countries to speak Portuguese. He has a slight accent in like Xmen 97, but it's not super prominent. Like it doesn't affect a lot of his speech patterns. We can probably figure that out as it's because of his very privileged upbringing. He probably had, judging from his English accent, probably an English or a UK-based English teacher. Because his accent and his speech patterns tend to be on the more formal side of things. But again, that's just the show. I haven't actually read any of his comics, so I can't talk too much about the comic side of things, mostly just the show aspect of it. So then we get to talk about Brazilian Portuguese versus European Portuguese. Did I include another? Yeah. So with Brazilian Portuguese versus European Portuguese, they end up dropping the L's a lot. And so what I mean by that is they drop the L's and they replace it with an U sound. So it was just like European Portuguese would be Brazil versus Brazilian Portuguese would be Brasil. Brasil. Or if we're talking about, what's another Portuguese word I know? Brazil was the only one I actually remembered because it's the same thing in English. They also have more pronounced vowels. So European Portuguese has more pronounced vowels than their Brazilian counterparts. And words ending with S tend to be pronounced S in Brazilian Portuguese versus sh in your European Portuguese. I can't remember what example they used, but the particular S sound ended up sounding more along the lines of just like how we use it in the US. So by that being in English is, like cats. But if say I was, for this instance, cats was a European Portuguese, it would be cats. And they kind of almost make it into a slight Z sound. Now we get to talk about Miss Rogue. I will take questions at the end, by the way. You can write it in your phone. That's what I've had to do before. Guys, we have so much time. I always do this. I always make my panels shorter, then they never need to be actually that short. It's 8:47. We have another 30 minutes. I'll let you guys make me do some horrible accents if that makes me feel better. I'll try. I'll say one sentence in a bad Russian accent for you. Of your choice. Of your choice, as long as you don't make me say anything bad. Okay. Look, we're not having fun in this panel. I'm doing something horribly, horribly wrong. All right, Rogue, the Miss Southern Belle herself. Yes, it's not just an accent. It is actually a dialect that she speaks. And let me tell you, I have so much fun doing research for her, and that may or may not be because I got to go to the local book resale store and pick up 3 different books on Appalachian dialects for this. I did not get through all of them, but I got through like half of one. So she has a southern, what we consider a Southern Belle accent, or specifically a deep Southern accent. And we can talk about the entire list of Southern accent names for some reason. There's like 5, and no, I can't name them off the top of my head. But the deep Southern Belle accent is more common around like Mississippi, Arkansas, your western half of Georgia even. And it has a more distinct tone than what you'll find up in like up in Appalachia, going to West Virginia, or even comparatively to like Texas. It's a very, very different accent. So what is very interesting about Rogue's accent in particular is it actually tends to mix the Southern Belle accent with an accent with the Appalachian accent. So she has longer vowels, rounder pronunciations. If we're talking with a deep Southern Belle accent, you're going to hear these large, elongated vowels. They talk forever. You ever see your grandmama on a porch? She ain't never gonna be quiet. She will keep talking because all she does is elongate those vowels. So what this actually started as though, it was a class differentiation. So by class differentiation is and that also kind of ties into Gambits a little bit, is we're talking about we get to talk about like upper class white Americans versus lower class white Americans. I specifically say that because we're going to get into the interesting mix of Creole and the Black influence on Gambit's one. But specifically, this was like during the American Civil War. So those who lived in the northern colonies basically decided to shorten all of their vowels just to be like, oh, we're so prim and proper. We don't need it. That's why if you've ever been to New York or New England, they kind of drop things even. So they're trying to shorten their words. They're like, oh, we don't need them. We're too fancy for that, actually.
Don't diss New York.
What?
Don't diss New York.
I'm not dissing New York. I'm just saying, like, the 13 colonies, they dropped their letters. Like, ka. I'm gonna go puff the ka. They just started they just started dropping their R's. Because I guess back whenever we were the colonies, they were like, guess what, y'all? We don't need them. So this is what I was saying, is she speaks with a bunch of different Southern accent. Yes, it is mostly the deep Southern accent. However, we also get more of that say Appalachian 5 times fast, actually, for me. I was joking about that because I can't say it, apparently. Good on y'all, I can't. But another thing that was fun, when I was doing research into this accent, is apparently in the Southern Belle accent or the Deep South accent, they don't actually drop a lot of those last letters. Like, at least I'm from Tennessee, like we do in Tennessee. So what they do is they drop their like INGs or their ENs or their EMs, and they just drop them. Like completely, and just like that's when you see the apostrophe mark written in whenever you see people writing these accents, is just because you hear them and they're just entire like letters, like 2-3 letters that are just completely dropped off. So that's where like I just put the example sitting because that was the first verb I could think of at the time. But even if you look into the comics, you see a lot of those like ing verbs specifically where that G is dropped off and replaced with an apostrophe. This is very, very common, and it's actually, she's one of the best examples because they write her accent in, and it's, other than like the mixing of like the dialect specifics, this accent is very, like I get a lot of questions on if her accent is actually like real. And do we have people from Georgia here? Yeah, great. I saw a bunch of, have you guys like been to like those deep Southern, like, yeah. Have you like heard those old grandmas speak? Yeah, it gets, even down in like Florida, like middle of Florida, where there's like not a lot going on. My grandmother lives down there, and sometimes I'll like hear her speak sometimes, and I'm like, you know what, I really wish I knew what you were saying. I sure wish I knew what you were saying.
What makes it even funnier is that Mystique raised her, so Mystique purposely did that dialect.
I'm sorry, can you imagine Mystique just showing up and be like, now hush a little bit, don't you cry. I know it didn't get that young, but now I'm just imagining her Kurt trying to give Kurt a Southern accent. A German Southern accent? Hold on. That's a cursed mixture, y'all. I don't know on that one. I don't know if I could survive listening to that. And I survived being taught Italian by a Russian woman. If you ever hear a Russian speak Italian, it is just as hard as you think it is to understand. It's like being taught Spanish by a Brazilian woman. I loved her to death, but you could hear that Portuguese accent. All right, moving on from the Nightcrawler with the Southern Belle accent. Now I'm just trying to think of him saying Wunderbar with that. I don't know if I can do that, guys. We'll try later. Look, I managed to stall us. We're now reaching the 30-minute mark, so I think I'm doing a good job at entertaining y'all, at least. Alright, so we're talking about Nightcrawler. Nightcrawler's from Bavaria, Germany. Basically, if you remember where Dusseldorf was on that map, we're on like the opposite end of the country. He is from the southwest area of Germany, from Bavaria, which is rather close to Austria. So that creates the fun dialect of Bavarian. I read 3 poems in Bavarian, and I did not understand a single word. I also don't speak German, which doesn't help. But other than just Bavarian, because Bavarian is so specific to that area, there's also a type called Austro-Bavarian, which basically has more of the Austrian German mixed in with Bavarian. I'm trying to think of how to short phrase this. Basically, you have your parent dialects underneath the main language of say German. And then underneath that you have your dialects, in this case, Bavarian. Well, sometimes dialects don't like to behave, and they like to mix with other dialects or other languages, and then you get to create what's called a subdialect. There are so many. We don't have the political means to get into that right now. Just know that Austro-Bavarian is one of them. You're about to hear me butcher German, I'm so sorry. But in normal standard German, you have alle Akten, which is used for, I think it's like a point of exclamation. Well, in Bavarian, they use Separate. And that's where they're differentiation. So this is a completely different word. It's not just it's just pronunciation differentiation. No, it is in an entirely new word. And again, this is German is not the only place this is found. Again, I think I mentioned at the very, very start of this panel, my specialty is Italian dialects. So this happens all over Italy. I'm pretty sure my friend sent me a Instagram post that was hey, this is about Italian dialects. I think you ghost wrote this. You can find me after, I'll show you. It is very me-coded. But when I was reading through these poems that I was looking at that were in Bavarian, one thing that I noticed, and again, this was more of a analysis understanding of when I was looking at it, is that they tended to add the before a lot of their main nouns. So if you're starting a sentence with a noun like a name, it would have then been precursored by the. So if we're starting a sentence da Kurt, or said you're saying Kurt as the first letter, first letter? Yeah, Kurt's a letter, guys. Congratulations, we've just now added one to the German alphabet. Kurt's the first word of the sentence. They would instead make that as da Kurt, and then continue on with the sentence. So that was one major thing I noticed between Bavarian and Standard German. And then they had a English translation section that was just German again. So I can't even tell you what the poem was about. It literally went, oh yeah, Bavarian, oh yeah, Standard German, oh yeah, English translation, and it was just the Standard German again. From what I understood, they were talking about a guy named Frank. Specifically, can't tell you, but it was talking about a guy named Frank. So one thing that you'll also hear in terms of accent-wise with German accents is a lot of their W's have more of a V pronunciation, so that's why you get the va instead of what. However, you also see a lot when mixing specific languages, people who are bilingual, sometimes you'll hear them mix certain words, sometimes consciously, sometimes unconsciously. While that isn't as common, even from working with a bunch of different people who speak in a bunch of different languages, someone realistically mixing a lot of their native tongue into their common phrases, it's usually not as quite as heavy as Nightcrawler does it in the comics. And that's coming from someone who literally accidentally switches to Italian when I try and say let's go, and then I say ayo or andiamo, and then my friends look at me and be like, what are you saying? Or I forget the word cucumber. I'm not joking. I think you work with me. You've heard me just get frustrated because I cannot remember cucumber in English. There's been times where I literally have to hold one up and go, what is this?
I told you to go get some, and you said the word in Italian, and I was like, huh?
It's Chitterioli, by the way. Anyways, their A sounds also have more of a funky U sound, which is very interesting, but you also hear it whenever it's especially when German says the word and, is und. Now, und is a word in German. However, it does accidentally translate well just because of how the letters in German. And if you didn't realize this, yes, other languages have shortened or lengthened alphabets. What I mean by that is, again, referring to Italian because it's like my safe language. So Italian actually only has 24 alphabets instead of 20. 24 alphabets? We'll get there eventually, guys. I'm just losing my mind. One letter at a time, one alphabet at a time. So they have 24 letters. They don't have J's. And then what's the other one? J's is just the one I remember off the top of my head because I couldn't spell my mom's name. I had to spell it with a G. So instead of like Jessica with a J, it was Jessica with a G.
This is a good example of both of those. This is last name of how it's spelled compared to how it's pronounced.
Oh yeah, Wagner, Kurt Wagner. I will say I've had to do his accent for a prolonged period of time, and trying to hold a German accent for 2 hours is something else. I've also accidentally made kids cry as Kurt. That's a true story. They looked at me and burst into tears. I didn't do anything, but I did have my fangs and yellow contact since that's probably what got him.
Justice for Kurt. He's a fluffy.
Justice for Kurt. You just had the real life mutant experience.
I was next to a Doctor Strange at the zoo. I work charity events. And I was Kurt for this event. And so I'm holding this German accent. I'm holding this German accent for 3 hours, okay? And I look at Dr. Strange right next to me, and he goes, "Oh, you're very good at holding this German accent." I'm like, "Yeah, I am." And then a kid walks by, and then she starts crying. One look, tears. I was very offended. I then also had to walk away because she wanted to talk to Doctor Strange. We could hear Doctor Strange because I was there. I did have, there was one kid who looked at me and asked if I was Megamind.
Kurt will have his day in the sun again when the Xmen movie comes out.
Yeah! I mean, sorry, checking time. I was in a really scared Gambit. We have plenty of time. All right. I mean, I could just fill the last 30 minutes of me talking about Gambit, but I'll save you guys that. I'll save you guys that speech.
Maybe that's what we want.
Maybe that's what you want?
Maybe that's what we wanted.
We will get to Gambit. I promise.
Okay,
See, you guys made me lose my train of thought. I feel like I was going to tell a funny story. I was doing trivia at Free Comic Book Day. And I was asking Nightcrawler questions. And let me tell you, the amount of people who couldn't, tell me basic facts about Nightcrawler, what his powers were, was very devastating. Yeah. Have you guys seen me, who here is on, TikTok? Good, as I was expecting. We're all nerds, let's be real. If we're not spending at least 3 hours a day on TikTok, what are we doing?
Spending 5 hours a day on Xmen wikis.
You know what? Valid. You know what? Respect, actually. That was me doing this panel. It was alright, so where are they from? What dialect do they speak? So there's an audio. If you haven't heard it, please look it up. It's so funny. Before I do that, has anyone here not seen 97? Cover your ears. So, it's Nightcrawler walking up to I'm sorry, I can't get through it, it's so funny. It's Nightcrawler walking up to Rogue and Cyclops. Or it's Rogue and somebody else. And he goes, Zed, don't be sad, stop crying. Nightcrawler has his own title card now. Okay, you're good, guys. You can uncover your ears. Which is true. And you bet I'm doing that audio tomorrow when I'm a Nightcrawler. Or the classic, no, little German boy, don't go into the X-Men. I'm not just for the Boy Scouting. The amount of little German boy autos I'm about to do, endless. Anyways, we should get back on topic here. This is Bavaria. Who let me run a panel, guys? Who let me in here? Momocon, apparently, that was their mistake. Here I was worried this panel wasn't gonna go well. It helps y'all are also enabling me. Okay, so if we're talking about Bavaria specifically, I couldn't actually find a specific city, but then again, he is tossed into a river. So I don't think that narrows really anything down. But if we're guessing from the whatever season of the original X-Men series he's from, the one episode where we meet Nightcrawler, they're on the slopes in Austria. We can guess that it was probably closer to the border. So I'm guessing maybe like around here specifically. Let's just say that river. Yeah, that river. Totally where Nightcrawler was across the bridge. Yeah, I rewatched that episode recently, and Mystique just yeets the baby. She says, I want this kitty, or hi! We're gonna ignore how that was retconned more recently in the comics, because that's an entire other thing. It's less funny than Mystique eating the baby. Yeah, the retcon was crazy. For those who don't know about the retcon they just did,
They do now.
Mystique's the dad. I mean, good on them, but Mystique's the dad. Yeah. And Nightcrawler officiated her and her wife's marriage.
Yes.
That was for Pride last year. It was very cute.
Yes.
Which is also a really cute short. Yeah, no, that was me, dude. That was me when I found out. It hurts. Don't think about it. The more you think about it, the more it hurts your brain.
Personal question. What are your thoughts on the retcon?
That's not for this panel.
For me,
I don't know how to feel.
For me, it's like I just like it only because it is hilarious that Nightcrawler is the son of Satan and became the Pope for a second.
Why did you have to remind me about that arc? Yeah, technically correct answer.
And it was funny as hell.
They took away our BAMFs. They took away our BAMFs, guys. If you don't know what a BAMF is, it's like a little tiny baby Nightcrawler, and they just run around and they bother him. They're adorable.
They're like
this
other children of Azazel.
Yeah,
They're like his little brothers and
feral.
sisters.
It's like they're little. We call them little BAMFs. He calls them little BAMFs.
They
It's-
take all of Logan's booze.
If I could deal with those little creatures, I probably would steal his booze too. Anyways, that's another one everyone really wants me to talk about. Yo, we managed to talk about Nightcrawler for like 10, 11 minutes.
As you should. Nightcrawler deserves it.
He does. He does not get enough screen time. Again. He has his own title card now. Alright, who wants to try and argue Quebecois versus Acadian friendship me? You will lose. First off, he speaks Cajun French, which is not Quebecois. If anyone tries to come in here and say he speaks Quebecois, we're meeting outside.
I'll fight with you honestly. Quebecois and Cajun French are they are dialects. Yes, they are both spoken on this continent, but if you
They're
hear
like
the two,
1,000 miles apart.
if you hear the two spoken, you can almost not tell the difference. One, because you think the one that's speaking Cajun French is a little drunk.
No, they're right. You haven't, if you've never heard an actual, it's, how do I explain it? It's like a drunk French person that's trying to mimic an American accent.
Yeah, a little bit. You poor two.
I'm not joking. It sounds like someone speaking French, but they're drunk, but they're trying to mimic an American accent.
And they're slurring together
And
really,
they're,
really
yeah,
bad.
they're slurring so badly. We'll pull up a video, I promise. So it's from Southern Louisiana, and so specifically what I mean by Southern Louisiana, and specifically what I mean in Gambit's case, because his accent is rather thick. There are people that have that thick of an accent out there. However, most of them tend to be out in the boonies. If you don't know where out in the boonies is, it's out in BFE. If you don't know what BFE is, why are you at this panel? I'm kidding. Basically, middle of nowhere. And that's where he is from. If you don't know about the whole King of Thieves arc, or the entirety of his history with Thieves Guild, and you actually like try and pinpoint anything that goes on with the Thieves Guild and the Assassins Guild, it's like impossible. But just know, middle of nowhere, Louisiana. That's where he's from. So it makes sense that his accent is that thick, and that's like, who here seen Deadpool Wolverine? I'm proud of y'all, actually. Hold up. In case you didn't need to know this, I'm proud of y'all for having seen that. It ruined my comic book collecting for Gambit, but that's okay. I can forgive it if it means he gets more screen time. Seriously, go look at like Gambit comic prices right now. They're kind of insane. I had like 3 series done, and now I'm never finishing them. So now we get to talk about the fun things of how did Cajun click on the next slide one? Yeah, that's the history. We're going to talk about Creoles versus Cajun for a second. Technically, by all technicality, Cajun as a language is kind of related to Creole, but not really. Creole is more of a people grouping, and while Cajun can be a people grouping, it is more focused centering on the language itself. So what I mean by that is they basically have similar influences, but not the same influences. So Creole specific, if we're talking about the Creole as a pidgin language, if you don't know what a pidgin language is, it's a language that just gets up and flies everywhere. Has little wings, it's so cute, they're very annoying. But actually a pidgin language is basically where it's a whole new language that forms whenever there's a bunch of languages in one area and they mix. Specifically, this ends up happening with a lot of our Northern African languages, and are like, it's basically these slaves that came over and were working for the French in Louisiana, and then they start mixing with the Spanish settlers in that area. And then they're mixing with, we have this interesting combo of, okay, we have all these dialects from Africa, we have all these languages from Africa, we have all this mix of these European languages, and that's what helps create Creole as a language. And so Creole in of itself is very interesting if you haven't done the research on it. It has a very, very unique history, and also ends up tying out to a lot of the other languages spoken by the Southeastern Black community. I had a coworker who, I can't remember what he spoke, but it was mixed with Haitian. It was like English mixed with Haitian. And he tried to speak it to me. And I've never been more confused in my life. Normally I can pick out a couple words.
Haitian's already kind of a tough language to get your hand around. I spent time in Haiti. It's a hard language to get your brain around, especially if you already know French, because there's a lot of African languages mixed in with it. So I understand maybe 70% of that. Can you run that by me again, sir?
It's like, there's also an Italian dialect that's very similar. That's basically said, hey, we're gonna take Catalan and we're gonna mix it with another dialect. You think you're mixing it with English?
No.
We're mixing it. You think you're mixing it with regular standard Italian? We're gonna mix Catalan with another dialect. Congratulations, it's indecipherable. It's also in a singular town. Try learning that one. I don't even remember. Okay, I remember one phrase, and it's, are you cold? And it makes me laugh every single time. I'm not going to say it because it sounds bad in English. It sounds bad to the English ear, which you can probably understand. We have like people under 18 in this room. Like, it's not that bad. I just, don't get in trouble with the con. No?
Go ahead.
It's just this OTT. It's not that bad. Look, I'm not risking it, okay?
That's fair.
There are some really funny French words, though, that are also equally as bad.
Oh yeah, there are. Like the word for pineapple.
No. Anyways, back to me talking about this not being Quebecois. Congratulations, we have 15 minutes left, guys. So the Acadians were up in Canada. They are a completely different group than the people that created Quebecois or even that sort of area of France. So the Acadians basically were like, we're being persecuted, bye! And then they moved down to Louisiana. Louisiana was bought out through the Louisiana Purchase. And so they're settled here and they're like, oh, well, okay, we're owned by the United States now, this is weird. So what they ended up doing was they ended up shortening a bunch of French words, which is why we say it sounds like they're drunk whenever they speak it. But unfortunately, Cajun as a specific language has a really bad reputation that the people who speak it are, say, less than or not intelligent. Because even in France, it is considered, and this is an actual thing that is used to describe the language, unfortunately, it's considered dirty French. Because it is so diluted with other languages and other impacts of cultures, it's considered to be so bad. If you try and speak Cajun French in France, people just give this entire language a bad rap. So what's really interesting about it is I tried to find a specific Native American language that was mixed with it. Turns out Louisiana has at least 10 different Native American languages within its confines. And they can't pinpoint if there's a specific one, because their languages were close enough to each other that they were still able to get by and talk to each other. So I can't really give you an example about that one, but Cajun French kind of also ends up mixed with Spanish and English. And I'll give you one of the most common ones that I see is you have it's about to be a little funky. You have chérie, which is French, cher, and cher. The only difference between two of those is an E. And one of them is Quebecois, and one of them is Cajun French. It gets there's a very thin line, and we're gonna dance across it. So whenever you see Gambit, and if you've ever read his comics, you'll see it typed out to C-H-E-R. That's your Cajun French. You slap an E onto it, congratulations, it's Quebecois. So then you have chérie, which is the actual French with an accent I. So they're all very, very close to each other. They all still have that same parent language of French, but it has been so diluted. Unfortunately, we're also talking about Cajun French. It's also considered one of the endangered languages. Same thing as in animals. It just means it's very close to losing the native speakers for it. And even then, a lot of the ones that are alive are either too old to remember every single word that they want to, or that they can. And it's becoming very hard to preserve it. But that's a different presentation. If you were here last year, you probably got to hear me talk about dead and dying languages for at least 10 minutes, I feel like I talked about in that panel. But one point you do hear a lot of is his slightly less harsh R's. Okay, this is the point where again, I'm gonna try a Cajun accent. It's not gonna go well. You think I would be better at this as a Gambit cosplayer. It's not easy. Okay. God, I'm trying to think of things Gambit says to try and get me to help with the accent. Someone give me a Gambit quote.
You can drain my energy any day, Cher.
Let's just look up rogue and Gambit quotes.
You can drain my energy any day, Cher.
That's a good one. I was about to say something, I realized I shouldn't say that. Never mind. Find me after the panel, I'll tell you it. It's really funny. Was it? You can drain my time any day, shit. So we're talking in this long drawn out kind of Southern Belle accent, but he kind of talks so faster than that, But then occasionally he rolls out that stuff. But if you notice, the R's were kind of shortened. Cher, if we're just talking about the French accent, little miss, talking all among friends, we're trying our best to get this very deep sort of vocal accent. If you notice, my voice kind of went deeper when I'm talking with this Cajun accent here. And we also are rearranging our sentences. Yeah, I can't believe I just did that. I'm not surprised y'all as much as it surprised me. I'll be real. I can't go that fast when I'm trying to do rogues.
You did great.
Aw, thanks.
Yes, you did good.
You don't have to lie to me. As my boyfriend makes direct eye contact with me. No, don't do that. We got 10 minutes left. I actually have to wrap this up. So honorable mentions. Deadpool Wolverine are Canadian guys. They're supposed to have Canadian like slang terms. I wasn't about to try and look that up because it is very close. It's just a lot of minor spelling stuff. And then it's Deadpool and Wolverine. I honestly did not know Deadpool was Canadian until someone mentioned it to me. Don't know. You be quiet. You be quiet.
Don't look up the old Spider-Man cartoon where they had Australian Wolverine.
Oh God. Reverend, you said there was an Australian Wolverine? I believe it. I just. Anyways.
Yeah.
Banshee is from Ireland. And if you don't know anything about the Irish, you should look it up. There's a very, very unique history with that country. You have Northern Ireland and Southern Ireland. I'm not going to go into the specifics of that, but just know that he is from Southern Ireland. He's also from the West Coast, which I'm sure absolutely affects it. Specifically, I wish I could have included him so I could have had an excuse to do more research on the differentiations between Northern Irish and Southern Irish, let alone any, obviously, dialects beneath that. But then you also get to the fun one, which is Gio, who's from Japan. I think he said Osaka? And I literally was hoping my friend who speaks Japanese and like their specialty is Japanese dialects. Oh, you're right there.
You
I'm
just
so
asked
sorry.
me. I'm looking at this like you didn't tell me to write you something for it.
JK guys, they're in the
I talked about Osaka in my panel for like the half of it because that's the big dialect.
I know it's the big dialect. I just forgot. That's why I didn't include it because I knew if I gave you that job, you would take over my panel.
It's true.
Anyways, the friend who speaks Japanese is here. But there were. I also had another panel that was denied, not in a bad way. I know the panel that they took instead, and I'm so excited for it. But they were gonna co-host it with me, and it was just we were gonna get to nerd out about linguistics for 30 minutes to an hour, as we do. But thank you guys. Whatever that was. Okay, good. Even if you didn't get all the knowledge you wanted, at the very least, I hope it was entertaining.
Seriously, now look at Spider-Man and Amazing Friends Wolverine in that whole story.
Oh God. Do we think I have time to look up the Cajun French video?
Yeah.
Yes.
He even says at one point, throws a shrimp on the
Do not
bone.
judge my YouTube search feed. I think it's mostly like sewing videos, but ignore it. I don't know, you might see some Madness Autograph stuff too. Oh, look at that! Look at that right there! No, I would not. I see an Elias right beneath it too. What are you doing? You're speed running this. I got 7 minutes. Okay, I'm gonna turn my volume up all the way because I don't know if this is gonna give me audio output, so you guys might have to be really quiet.
Building your online business?
Oh boy, guys, just what we wanted.
Go to Wix.
No audio output, my ass.
C'était dur. Je croyais juste le monde riche parlait l'anglais. Je croyais le monde qui parlait l'anglais c'était riche. Je croyais pas. Puis là, quand j'ai commencé à parler l'anglais, j'ai jamais vu riche.
They slur everything together, and that's not like
Somebody gave the French language too much bourbon, honestly.
Honestly, yeah. Someone looked at them and said, "We're going to slur every other letter."
We're speaking in cursive, baby.
No. You're giving it too much credit. Cursive is actual French. Cajun French is Russian cursive.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, I love that sound. You know exactly what I'm talking about.